Confused by finances, investing, estate and retirement planning? Well, we went to school so you don't have to. Welcome to Finances and with Kathy and Norma. Jennifer, who's here stepping in for co-host today for Norma. She's in the process of buying a new home, and she's chosen to rent out her old one instead of selling it.
Hi, Kathy. Thanks so much for having me. It's going great. We are through negotiations at this point. I think the only thing we have to do now is wait until closing, and it's ours.
Very exciting. Buying a new house is an exciting thing, right?
It is. It is.
We're going to start off with talking about selling a house first. Selling your home, you could try and sell it by yourself if you'd like to, but I would suggest that you want to use a pro, especially if this is the first time you're going through this process. And we're going to go ahead and assume that you're using a realtor when we're talking about it today. Personally, I would go ahead and talk to friends that have bought a house recently or people that you respect, because what you want to do is find out if they like their realtor. This is like any other job. You're interviewing for this. You don't have to take the first person that you call an agency. You get to decide if this is the person. You want to ask them what their sales were. You want to make sure that their personality is going to jive with yours. I had a realtor once, and in the end, we just had to move on to someone else because we just didn't seem to have the same personality in terms of drive and what we were looking for in the house. This is an interview. So feel like it's an interview. Take time and make sure it's the person that you want. Also, negotiate with commissions because that's an option for you. They have a certain flat rate, but it's a possibility that you're able to change those commission rates, which means you're going to pay less in points, percentage of the purchase price of the house. You're going to interview them, and then you're going to sign a buyer broker document. And that means you're agreeing on those prices, the negotiations, how long they're going to support you, any other types of things that they might have in their contract. Again, all negotiable, but you're going to sign a broker document saying that you're going to use them.
And so I would just really second that personality piece that Kathy mentioned, because we also started out with a realtor who our personalities just weren't jiving. We were not on the same page, and it was a little uncomfortable at times. So we had to, make the decision to go to somebody else who we now absolutely love. So it's worth it to make sure that you are comfortable with your realtor for sure. The next thing that we wanted to talk about was, so once you have your realtor, you're going to want to start taking a look at your house and things that you need to do with your house. If you have a lot of stuff, you might want to start moving some bigger items into storage and decluttering your house. You'll also want to depersonalize it by taking down your personal pictures and items, because you really want to make your home a model home so that buyers can see themselves in it when they come into your home.
Because you can imagine when you go into a new construction, you're not seeing a whole bunch of wedding photos or cat or dog pictures or even a cat and dog bowl, which, let's face it, if you have one, you're going to have to leave that out for your pets. But you want to make it so that whoever's walking into this house is feeling like, wow, I could live here too. It's not, oh, well, I don't have kids, or I don't want to start a sewing room, or whatever it is. You're going to want to decide what you know needs to be fixed, though. If you know that there is that cabinet door that's askew in the kitchen, you want to go ahead and fix that, because you're trying to put your house in its best light. You want to make sure when they walk in, they are like, wow, this is where I see myself living for the next X number of years. You don't always have to fix things, but all of those minor things that you can bring up make people excited to be in your house. And let's face it, the whole point of this is that you want someone to say, I want to live in this house. This is the one.
And you don't want them to come in and feel like, oh, I'm going to have to fix that and fix this and fix all of those things as soon as they move in either.
And be aware, they're going to be going through your closets. They're going to be going through your drawers. They're not being nosy. They're trying to see how things work, if they open easily, if these things are working. I had a vent on my oven for the entire time I owned the house, that to turn the light on, you had to push up on the vent and then turn the light on. I lived with it for years. And then I realized I can't sell it like that. Nobody else is going to want to do that. So it took one screw and 4 minutes and I was done, and I could have lived without that myself. So just think about that. What is it you can do ahead of time that's going to make it so people know that they're going to want to live in your house, and you're going to recoup the cost on it by the money that you're making?
And you also want to then decide, is it something that is that easy, just putting a new screw in something, or is it something that you need to hire somebody else to fix if it's a bigger issue? You'll also want to give your home a really thorough deep clean before people start seeing it, either yourself or if you can hire a cleaning company to do that. And this is also a great time to think about your landscaping, and curb appeal is a huge selling point for houses. So you want the buyers to get a really great impression and good feeling as soon as they see your house and really make them want to go inside. So it's worth it to put in the extra effort to make the outside of your house visually appealing as well.
Think about all the TV shows that we can watch on HGTV where when the first thing they drive up, they're like, ugh. Well, that's what you don't want, right? You want someone to drive up to your house and say, oh, show me the rest of it, right? Taking the time to get some landscaping done, some sweat equity, because that actually doesn't always cost a lot to do. It's just harder work if you're going to do it yourself. Again, another reason to hire a professional is that you want to make sure that you're pricing your house right. You don't want to price it so that people are not interested in paying that much for it. So by using a realtor, you're going to be able to make sure that you're utilizing their experience in what's been selling lately, how much per square foot people are getting, and have a better chance of selling your home quickly, because the kiss of death is leaving it on the market. Then people start to think, why is this house not selling? I'm going to go look at houses that are brand new on the market for some reason.
And then once everything is ready, you want to stage the house. So you really want to set it up so that each space is defined and the buyers can see themselves in the home. Keep the house clean so that you can leave the house quickly if the realtor needs to do a showing on short notice. So those are things that you want to kind of keep ongoing while your house is on the market.
Be prepared to step out. As much as you know about the house, this is a negotiation, a business deal, and your heart is in this house. You need to step out and give them time to do that. Remember, you're selling this house. You might have loved it at one point, but something has caused you to move on. Maybe you need a bigger place. Maybe you need a smaller place, but you need to try and leave your emotions out of it. Of course, you spent money on this and you want to make as much money as you can. Completely reasonable. But this is a business transaction, so you need to try and leave your emotions at the door. That is the beauty of a realtor. That's why they step in and negotiate for you, because they can take some of the emotion out of it by saying, this is what we are presenting as our best deal. Now, they are going to get paid on commissions, as we mentioned, and those commissions could be up to 6% of the home price. So you want to be able to negotiate those with your own realtor if you can, because that 6% is going to come out of the cost of the profit that you make in the sale of your home. Also, you also can negotiate who's going to stage your house or who's going to pay for closing costs or the title fees. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen all the time, but depending on the market, right now it's a great market. And so you might have even more leeway in asking for a realtor to help you pay with certain costs.
You'll also want to have photos taken before your home is listed, and you really want to make sure they are amazing and show off your home, and even hire a professional if possible. Take pictures of things that you really want to show off. We looked at a house recently and our realtor had to go see it. Photos online, they had very few photos. They had no photos of the kitchen. And who wants to buy a house when you can't see the kitchen first? And our realtor went there and they had completely redone the kitchen. And he said, it looked amazing. Why would they not take photos of this and show it off? So he said specifically, they would have trouble just getting people in there to see it because they didn't post that online. It doesn't make sense why they wouldn't do that.
Obviously, again, your realtor is going to help you with this, but the lighting is so important. You don't want to just snap a photo like you're standing in your bathroom and you see you in the mirror, right? You want to have somebody do a good job, because so many of these houses now are bought and sold online. I know friends that had to just move to Houston recently. They saw their house online, they bought it, and they moved to Houston. They never actually walked in the house until they got down to Houston. So again, everything you can do as a seller to make somebody want to buy your house sight unseen, those pictures are going to make a big difference.
And that's what we had to do with our current house too. We have seen it since then, but we put an offer on it without seeing it.
So one of the things that you might not have thought of is that you want to make sure that you have insurance on your house that would cover you in case someone comes into your house and is injured. So you just want to talk to your insurance agent and just say, we're selling our house. Is what we have currently reasonable if people are going to be coming in and out of the house, especially if you have a pool or pets that might be at a danger that might cause somebody to get injured. But it could be anything, especially in the wintertime, if there's ice on the sidewalks, things like that. So just be aware of that. And then in terms of pets, if you have pets, you need to do the best you can to keep them sequestered when people are in there. If you can take them out of the house, if you're given that kind of time, that's the best thing you can do. But you have to know that having them in the house is going to hinder your ability to sell it sometimes. You want to be accommodating to the buyers because you want them to come and buy your house. Again, we're taking the emotion out of this. I want this house sold, so I want to make sure that they come in and that they're able to make their decision as soon as they can, that you want them to say, this is the place that I want to live. So be aware that they might need some time. Maybe they're selling their own house before they can purchase yours. There's going to be different contingencies that you're going to have to be listening to with them. And quite honestly, you might need to offer or request some back to them. You might need to rent back your house, even though you've sold it to them. You might need to stay in it an extra week. So be prepared for those kinds of moving pieces also.
And at that point, once all the details are accepted, you've gone through negotiations. Really, the only thing left to do is a whole lot of signing. So you're going to have many, many documents that you need to sign. Be sure to ask questions along the way about anything. Your realtor is your expert, and they're there to help you throughout the whole process.
Please do not feel threatened in that meeting that you can't ask a question about it. The person who's presenting you these papers is doing it all day long. They're saying sign here, and they are explaining to you what's on the page. But if there's something you don't understand, say, I don't understand. That's okay, especially if it's your first house, but it could be your fourth house. If you don't understand what it's saying, just tell them that. They will explain it. They're going through it at the high level just to move on. But if there's something you don't know, tell them. I know that when I bought our very first house, my embarrassing story, but they were talking about how many points things were and this many points and that many points. I had no idea what that meant. And I just nodded and smiled, and it was silly. There's no reason to have not known, but now you know. And so you'd be able to negotiate that or at least have that information. So we just sold our house. We got the keys. We're all happy, but now, what happens if you're like in Jennifer's case, she's ready to buy her new house? You need to first decide what is your level of interest in a fixer-upper or not. Are you looking for something called turnkey, which means you move in and nothing needs to be done? It's perfect the way you want to try to sell your home. Or do you want a fixer-upper that you want to put some of your sweat equity into it, pay a little bit less, and then start making the house the way you want the house to look? You might very well use that same realtor again to buy the house that you used for selling your other house. But whether you do or don't, you want to make sure that this is the person that you want to spend time with, that you feel like they're going to get you the best deal and that you have a relationship with them, because this is a relationship.
Yeah, it definitely is. And you want to make sure that you're comfortable with them. So then one of the first steps, once you have your realtor, one of the first steps in buying a house would be to get a pre-approval letter from your lender. So it's a really great idea to call different banks and different lenders to find out what current interest rates are, what they're offering with their loans and their mortgages. You can also use a mortgage calculator to figure out how much home you can afford before talking to your lender. So that way, if your lender approves you for much more than that, you will know because you have a better range of what you actually want to stay in. Some realtors will even want your pre-approval letter before they even show you houses. Some don't, but it's always a good idea to start that process so you know. And it's really helpful then when you're putting in offers, so that way the seller knows that you have the funds available and they're not going to have to wait if you choose to purchase the house.
It's going to make you seem more appealing if they have two offers. One is already approved by the bank for the full purchase price that you're agreeing on, and the other family is trying to get approval for the purchase. They want to sell their house. They want to go to whatever their next adventure is. So having that letter ahead of time. The other reality is it helps you keep in check what you're going to spend. It's very exciting to get out there, see homes, and all of a sudden you see something even more beautiful, and think, I'm going to spend extra money on this new place. And that pre-approval letter helps keep you focused between this is my cap of what I can actually borrow. And I think that's helpful because, again, emotions plays an amazing part in purchasing a home. It is exciting beyond words, and it can be devastating when you don't get the place, but knowing what it is that you can spend on your house helps just keep some of that emotion in check. You're going to want to make sure to get a home inspection on this new place. This is a negotiating point for a lower price to get things fixed or not. So if you choose for some reason not to get the home inspection, you would not have to, but I think that you would definitely want to do that.
The home we bought that we are currently living in, after the home inspection, we were a little disheartened or we were a little disappointed. So the house that we are in currently was a little bit of a fixer-upper. It wasn't a horrible house, but there were some things that we wanted to fix. So when the home inspector came in, he found some structural issues. So that was something that scared us at first, thinking, oh no, like it seemed an okay house, but it has these really big issues. But he also really encouraged us, he gave us prices that he thought it would be to fix it. And really kind of reassured us that, while this sounds like a scary thing, it's a somewhat easy fix. So if this is a house that you really want, you could still go through with it. It's just kind of you deciding how much you want to put into it or how much work you want to have put into it.
And that actually becomes a negotiating point in your pricing. They've asked a price for the house. You're able to talk to a professional who's suggesting how much some of these things are to fix. And you can say, listen, if you'll drop the price of the house, then we'll take the responsibility of fixing it later. So it's a negotiating point as well.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we did. We negotiated a good amount down from what we had originally offered. Well, I believe in most of those cases, do you have to offer or do you have to request that they fix it first?
This is all negotiation. Everything is negotiation. So you can say, hey, I'll pay for this house if you fix the X and I'll pay the price we agreed on. Or you can say, I will pay you X less and I'll go ahead and fix that thing, whatever it is. Because let's say it's new carpeting. Let's say the carpeting is destroyed. Maybe you want them to put new carpeting in, but maybe you're worried about what they're going to choose, the quality of the carpeting they're going to put in. And so if you would rather just say, I'll take a budget item for that, and then I can put in the color or the hardwood or the whatever that I want to put in and make it your own. And that's part of the negotiating.
Okay. Yeah. So we've always requested that they fix things first. And both times they've come back and said, well, in lieu of fixing things, we're going to take this amount off. So that's how it's worked out for us.
And the reason for that is this just work. They got to find a contractor. They got to clean out their house. So it's easier for them to say, you know what, here's some money, you go do it. And quite honestly, as long as the price is a good negotiation, you can have that done between when you're moving in and out, and you get to personalize it a little bit more. So it's what you want.
Yeah. And you don't want to end up having them choose, the cheapest guy possible to fix something and have it not be that great either. In this process, you're definitely going to want to see many homes and compare depending kind of on the market at the time. You definitely want to do your own research online and kind of figuring out what you want, the neighborhoods that you like. So think about your must-need items and then also items that you can compromise on. So if the fenced-in backyard is a must-need for the dog as soon as you move in, then let your realtor know that. But if it's something that you say, oh, we'll deal with it for a while and then we'll put a fence in later, just be open to that, those sort of compromises when you're looking at all these different houses.
One of the things you don't want to do is when you see this house online, it looks amazing. Don't call the agent that's listed there. There's nothing wrong with that person. You're sort of going out of the chain of command when you do that. If you see a place that you would like to go see, you should call your realtor and they will set up the meeting. Even if it seems like you're having to wait for it, maybe they could negotiate that you can go and just meet with their realtor. But you don't want to kind of go out of that chain of command because they're serving your best interest and you want to make sure that you are getting what you're paying for out of that professional because they're going to be looking out for you. Again, you can request that the seller pay a portion of the commissions that you're going to owe to your realtor. Every single thing is negotiable. You have to say to yourself, either how much money do I want to spend? How badly do I want to hold off and just get the perfect price for me? Or how badly do I want this house? I know that I have some friends who just purchased their first home and there was a huge bidding war and they ended up not being the highest price, but writing a letter to the person selling it. And they chose them based on this letter because of their circumstances. And so again, everything is negotiable. It might not be the highest price. It might very well be the highest price. They might not care. And that's all they care about. And, maybe they need to care about that, but everything's negotiable. So make sure you're using your realtor and they can help you with these kinds of, hey, try this, try that sort of ideas.
Yeah, definitely. Our realtor suggested the same thing with a letter, and knowing that you can negotiate everything is really, really important. Once you find that house that you love, you want to also take the time to drive by the house at different times of day, and look and listen for things that may bother you once you move in. Is it on a busy street? Is there loud traffic? Are you near train tracks that you didn't realize before? Are there bright lights from the high school stadium that's across the street? You really want to pay attention and go around the house at different times to, again, determine what is the deal breaker and what can you compromise on? What can you live with? Because you really want the house for these other things. And this is all in an ideal world because I know, like I said, right now the market is really crazy. And, we put an offer on a house before we even saw it. And we're actually, we're buying this house 2.5 hours away from where we currently are. So it's really difficult to go drive by it multiple times a day. This is an ideal world. So if you have the opportunity to do this, definitely go do it. But if not, you have to kind of recognize that you might move in and realize that there are some things that maybe you couldn't see right away.
I've even had homes that are bought on either side of me come over and introduce themselves to me prior to their purchasing the house, just trying to ask questions about the neighborhood. This always happened. Does this never happen? Just sort of questions to gauge what's going on around the neighborhood. I think that's completely reasonable, just to get somebody else's opinion of what happens there. You might not care if those things happen or not, but at least you're aware that.
Oh yeah, we do that too. When we were just driving the neighborhood, stop and talk to someone.
It's a great idea. And in general, people are happy to talk about it, right? They want to meet you too, because it's a great way to meet new neighbors. One of the things we need to consider is if there is a homeowners association, or an HOA it's called, and can you abide by the rules of your homeowners association? If there is one, the seller is going to have to give you the documents for the HOA. You'll sign for those documents, and you'll have 3 days to decide if you can live with them. So you might have even started on this process. You might have put earnest money, which is where you're putting a down payment down. You might have already decided this is the place I want, but you should take advantage of those 3 days to read through the homeowners association documents. If you're thinking to yourself, wow, I would love to have a chicken coop, and that's my plan, and you read through those and it says no farm animals, I can tell you from personal experience, you're not getting a chicken coop. It's something that you want to make sure that you can live with whatever's in there. I find it funny. I grew up in a very planned community in Reston, Virginia, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place to be. And people will move in and then they get mad that they can't paint their house pink or striped or whatever it is. That's in the homeowner's documents. So it's up to you. You come into a beautiful place, you like how it looks. Well, there's a reason that it looks that way. So just make sure you're taking advantage of those days that you are accepting of those rules, because once you buy it, you have accepted those rules. The other thing to be careful of is making sure with the homeowners association itself that the seller does not have any outstanding issues. For example, if their side of their house is covered in mold or algae and they were required to clean that, if they have not done that and the homeowner association is expecting them to do that, that is now your job, your priority to get that done. So you just want to double check with the homeowners association that they're up to code with everything that they're expected to do.
Once you've had the inspection on the house done, we talked about this briefly before, but just after having the inspection done, you know that you are able to ask for those repairs. However, the seller does not have to make them. So they may say no, that they do not want to make those repairs. They may negotiate something else. They may offer a seller credit in lieu of making the repairs. Again, it's all another opportunity for negotiations.
Sure. And in terms of negotiation, you need to figure out what's conveying with the property. And by conveying means coming with the property. Look, the kitchen cabinets are conveying with the property, but there could be other things. They might have some fancy light that they bought, or they might have washer and dryers that they spent a lot of money on. You just want to confirm that what you see is what you're going to get. And if there's something that you as the seller don't want to get rid of, in other words, you're going to take that product with you, that has to be listed in the conveyance of what's going to go or what's going to not go. I know for myself, when we bought our first home, there was a gorgeous handmade 4-poster high bed with 2 high nightstands. I could not get over how beautiful they were. And one of the things that he was supposed to do was to paint the house, but I wanted that bed like nobody's business. So we negotiated that he would not paint the house and he would leave us the bed and nightstands. And so that kind of thing, figuring out what can convey and what might not, he didn't care if he left it or not. And he was happy to not paint the house, in all honesty. So if there's something you see in there, ask. They might very well say, absolutely. It's a negotiating point.
I love that you asked for something like the bed. I think that's fantastic. You saw it and you liked it. For us, the washer dryer is something that has bugged us with looking with houses, because almost all houses we looked at, the washer and dryer was not included. And that's not something that we want to have to go out and buy. For almost every house we put an offer on, we asked for the washer dryer. And the one we have, they said, yeah, you can have that. The funny thing about the house we're currently in is that my husband asked for the lawnmower because we saw a lawnmower sitting in the garage, but this is a house that had been vacant. So to me, the lawnmower looked like it didn't work. And I'm like, why are you asking for that lawnmower? It's probably broken. They said they would give it to us. And I'm like, they are probably laughing. Like, they left us a broken mower and they didn't have to deal with it. And sure enough, it was broken, but my husband was able to fix it. And now we've been able to use that mower for a year. So, hey, ask. You never know.
Worst thing you're going to tell you is no, right?
Yeah.
The other thing besides homeowners that you need to watch out for is if you are moving into a historic district. As quaint and as sweet as those kind of areas are, they can have lots of rules. And it's very beautiful in a historic district most often, but you want to make sure, again, that you can live with the rules. I have a friend who just recently, last few years, purchased a home in a historic district here and just runs into having to meet with their organization very often for whatever kind of changes they're trying to make. Not that I don't support that the historic district wants things to look the way they want them to look. It's just one more step, and you need to be aware of it in your negotiations because it will impact you if you're moving into one of those areas.
What about homes that are listed for sale as is? Typically, when I think of a home that's sold as is, I think of like a severe fixer-upper and something that is really far gone and needs basically a total overhaul. And if that's the case, the seller would often list it as is because they're not going to fix anything on a home like that. They're selling it because of its state. They want somebody who will come in and fix all of those things. But there could also be some other homes that to you, they look like they're a pretty decent home and they're still listed as is. So if that's the case, then you want to determine the amount of risk that you're willing to take when you purchase a home like that, and knowing that there will be some things that need to be fixed that are not going to be negotiated on. You'll still get an inspection and you'll still figure out what needs to be fixed, but the seller's not going to fix those things. There are some things that they will still need to disclose to you that they know about. So like if there's termite damage, if there's mold or foundation issues, leaky roof, radon, things like that, they're still going to let you know that.
Personally, we moved into a house that ended up having radon. I don't know, everybody was testing for radon, I guess, at the time. And so that was something we had to mitigate or get rid of ourselves. So we had to install a mitigation unit to pull the radon out from under the house. And the reason for that is lots of houses in my neighborhood seem to have that same kind of radon problem. So again, you want to ask about those things or even test for those things that you just want to make sure that are not being hidden, because some of them can be very expensive. When you're going to go buy the house, you need to understand your debt ratio to be able to know what you can afford. It's great if you've used a calculator online, because that's exactly what they're trying to do, is to help you figure that out, more than just putting numbers in on a calculator. If you've done what we suggested and already gotten your pre-approval letter, that's fantastic. But realize that lenders are looking for what they call like a 43% rule. It's not just the cost of the mortgage payment, but knowing that there are other fees that are related to housing that's going to be included in that. So you don't want to be house poor. You don't want to be paying 75% of your monthly income to a house. You won't be able to pay for the electricity ultimately. But some of the things that they're going to look at in that 43% calculation is the mortgage itself, the mortgage insurance that you're going to have to pay if you've put less than 20% down, called PMI, the insurance for the house itself. You're going to have to be paying that monthly, as well as if there are any homeowners association dues, and then property tax. So they're going to look at all 5 of those things, roll it together, and come up with a monthly payment. Is that something you can do? So for example, if your gross income is $4,000 and I multiply it by that 43%, I get $1,720. So that's how much I could expect to pay all in each month for the mortgage, the insurance, the fees. And is that doable in my budget or my spending plan?
And when you're considering buying, you'll want to think about how long you actually plan to stay in this home. If it's less than 5 years, then you may be better off renting instead of making this purchase at this time. So it's just always something that you want to weigh your options carefully, think about your personal goals and what you can do at this time.
Otherwise, you might want to rent. I mean, if you're not able to say that we're going to be there for that amount of time, or if you're new to an area, you might choose to rent for a little while. There's nothing wrong with it. You're going to have to move a couple times. That's the downside of it. But you don't want to spend a lot of money in these closing costs and these fees just to have to pop up and move again fairly soon, because you're going to pay them again wherever else you land. So those are things to be thoughtful of. And again, a realtor can help you with looking at all of that. One of the things that you most definitely want to consider is your down payment when you're purchasing the house. If you can put down 20% of the purchase price, that means you're not going to pay that PMI, which is the private mortgage insurance, PMI, because that can actually equal up to a half to 1% of the purchase price of the loan. So you would be saving that every month. So when we were talking about before, your gross income times 43%, you would actually not have to pay that part of monthly payments because the lender realizes that you've put such a large amount down that you're not a risk for not following through on paying for your mortgage. So it's like an insurance. It actually is an insurance. If, for example, you don't make your payments, the lender requires you to buy it so that they will recoup some money back and you're just paying for your own insurance in case you can't pay for it. You can listen to our mortgage and refinance podcast, and it talks a lot more about that.
And then when you're also, spending these years planning and saving for your down payment, when the time comes, you want to make sure that you're keeping some money set aside for things like closing costs, moving costs, any other move-in expenses that you might not be thinking about it initially. You don't want to sink all of your savings into the down payment and then realize that you need $2,000 or $3,000 to pay for closing costs as well. So just make sure that you're aware of that too. You'll also have an appraisal done, which will be another upfront fee, and the appraiser will come out to the house and assess the home's value. And this is something that I really didn't know much about until recently going through this home buying process. Home appraisal is important because a bank isn't going to give you a loan for more than the appraised value of the house. We have yet again another opportunity for negotiations. So if the appraisal comes back valued more than your agreed upon purchase price, then congratulations, you just gained some automatic equity, which is awesome. However, if it appraised lower than your agreed upon purchase price, then you can ask the seller to come down to that price. Now, as I mentioned, the market where I'm at is really crazy right now. So people are actually putting in bids like $20,000 over list price. Our realtor said that in that case, a lot of these people are putting in their initial offers that if the home appraises less, then they're going to be willing to pay like $5,000 over the appraised value as another negotiation point for them. So they're saying, I really want this house and I'm willing to pay more than the appraised value. So they're putting in these high bids and they're saying that they're willing to pay that up front.
That just means having more cash on hand if you're going to do that. So you just use the word equity real quick. I just want to say that just means how much money is in the house. If you buy your house for $100,000, but it appraises at $120,000, that means you right now have an extra $20,000 of equity in your home so that when you go to sell it later, you can ask for that delta, that difference between those prices. Well, thanks for listening to Finances and Buying and Selling a Home. We know you chose to listen today and we're grateful. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share. It means a lot. Please let us know what you think on Facebook or by going to our website at financesand.net. Thank you, James, for your question last week. Finances and does not provide tax or legal advice, and nothing in this podcast can be construed as such. Always consult a tax, accounting, or legal professional for advice on your specific situation. Remember, we went to school, so you don't have to.